very exciting segment where we're going to be discussing the issues of racism within the industry, some of their struggles and how they've overcome. Without further ado, we're going to kick off with the first question, and I'll ask Jessica, how did you enter into your industry, into the fashion industry?
Well, I just want to say, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. Pop-Up Africa is not necessarily just about fashion. We do have fashion brands that come on board, but it's literally about celebrating Africa and the creatives that have come out of Africa and its diaspora. It started in 2013, like you said, and it was basically out of my interest in all things Africa and my keenness for a bit more representation on the wider market. I lived in Nigeria up until I was 2, and then I came to the UK and was in East London for a little bit of my childhood, but then I grew up in Essex, and there weren't many black kids. I was like the only black girl in my class, so representation wasn't really there for me growing up, and also when I was in East London, it wasn't cool to be African. You didn't want to, it was at a time when Afrobeats wasn't on the radio and you could buy Chin Chin in Tesco. So when I went to university and I connected with loads of Africans, loads of us that grew up here, loads of people that grew up in Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, I was like, oh my gosh, I found myself. My parents were like, who is this child? When I came back home. And I was always going to events and eager to buy stuff that represented me. So that's basically how Pop-Up Africa started. I was like, okay, let me start an event where African brands have a platform to promote themselves to a wider audience. And fast forward a couple of years, we were buying Chin Chin in Tesco, and going to restaurants that are owned by us, young, old, and it's brilliant to see, and we will definitely want to see more. So that's
brilliant.
how we started.
Thank you very much. And just moving on to Osborne, sort of a twofold question. What inspired you to start up your brand, and what are some of the challenges you faced in your industry?
So first of all, thank you for everyone there as well. My name is Osborne. So I was inspired to start my brand, Untitled. I'm Nigerian by country. So I went to school over in Nigeria for about 2 years. My auntie owned a fashion boutique where I used to help her as an apprentice. I didn't realise I had a love for it, and while staying in Lagos, I kind of just used to help her when she wasn't around, help her with her customers and her clients, and it kind of just became second nature to me. So when I came back over to London, I had a few mates. There was a trend where everyone was wearing flare jeans, and they kind of wanted to go into skinny fit. And they kept going to the dry cleaners, but I said I could do it, so I just used to help them slim fit it. We used to have a lot of customers from there, and then ended up just sort of, representing Africa, because I always wear like natives and kaftans, and I was inspired by the likes of Femi Otodola, Dangote. If you notice the way they dress, they don't wear designers. It's just very simple, native, all white. I'm not sure how many pairs of white natives they own, but I just was inspired by this. And I used to, wear it to the clubs, wear it to work, and people used to ask me, where did you get this from? I said, I made it, and they just, it started off from there, sewing for my friends, family, and then ended up, weddings, and ended up on fashion shows. And yeah, what I'm trying to do is, bring a more modern kind of inspiration towards the young black boys growing up today, so that they wouldn't need to go to the Zara's and everybody have something to wear as a casual wear and a contemporary wear. But yeah, that's literally how I started.
And what are the challenges that you faced in your industry thus far?
So the challenges I faced, obviously being a young black man, I grew up in Peckham, which is South London. I faced a lot of, I'm actually a project manager by day, and obviously a fashion designer. Some of it was when I went to my first fashion show, being a young black person, a lot of people may not, when I say the trend might not be what people want. But you know, trying to get into that industry and show that I am determined and you know, being myself. I think being from Africa is sort of showing that Africa has a diverse, unique range of clothes, not just Ankara, but you know, we can also be brave and confident and you know, be able to speak. I think one of the biggest challenges is not being able to, you know, actually communicate or be vocal. But you have to be strong, you have to be brave, you have to be independent, and you have to show that you do belong there. There's that imposter syndrome as well, feeling like, am I supposed to be here? But you know, once you kind of grasp who you are and you're an inspiration to others, you realize that you are supposed to be there, and God put you in a position to be in that position. So that's one of the challenges I face.
Excellent. And just moving on to Faith Johnson, who is the founder of Caramel Rock and has started this initiative. How did you start up the organisation, for those who don't know your story?
So the organisation started in 2008. So in that year I got into Central St Martin's University, which is the best fashion institution to attend globally. So I thought, okay, I got into CSM, I must be alright at fashion. And so I've always had a heart for community. So although I'm a designer by skill, I have a passion for community and community development. So at that point in 2008, I think for 10 years, I was coaching cheerleading, and I was ready to pack it in. I was doing cheerleading from about the age of 7 up until 2008. So I was ready to pack it in, and I wanted to do something else. I thought, I'll go into CSM, I'll do some coaching and teaching around fashion. So everything I was learning at CSM, I was bringing it back into Newham, into this community. I'm running like day workshops in a cafe, and started it from there.
Brilliant. So what would you say is the unique thing about Caramel Rock?
So there are, lots of fashion institutions, universities, colleges, which are all relevant and has its important place. But for Caramel Rock, we're all about supporting those that may be very talented, or those that may have an interest in fashion, but they may have been kicked out of school, they may be registered at the young offending team, they may be on probation, and for whatever reason they haven't had the best start, but they have an interest in fashion, be it t-shirt printing or be it the technical side. So for a lot of the young guys that are referred to us, their mum has a sewing machine at home and they sew traditional wear, and they've been around textiles for decades, and they want to give it a go, and so they get referred to us, and we support them and take them through some training.
Brilliant. So moving on to Tamara, you're the founder of Bespoke. Very, very interesting, going into menswear. What inspired you to set up a fashion brand in menswear?
For women's wear, there's so much out there that I think the menswear is lacking. I think over the years it's kind of built up, but it was just your basics, your t-shirts, your shirts, your jeans, all look the same in whichever shop you went to. So I thought, why not try and infiltrate the menswear and move in? With my brand being made to measure, I also wanted to change it from being your traditional shirts and your suits, so it would be more the casual range. In my family, I have a lot of men who kind of do sports, so they're really built. So your traditional t-shirts wouldn't fit around their necks. So if you can remember, there was a trend where the guys would have the V-necks and people were making fun about it. But it's because the t-shirts wouldn't fit around their necks. So I would do alterations and stuff to kind of make your basic stuff fit them. So I thought, why not turn it into a business and actually create a range where guys who are struggling can actually get the basics that fit them properly.
Excellent. And just moving on to Jessica, what has helped you get to where you are, and what advice would you give to others who want to go in the same direction or similar direction?
I think self-belief really does help. Not saying that I've not faced imposter syndrome, not saying that I've not faced challenges and people saying that you can't do it along the way, but I think ultimately, if you believe in yourself, that's the biggest help that you can get. You've got to help yourself before anyone can help you.
Yes, that's true. And Osborne, have you faced any issues of racism in the industry? And if so, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, I have. So I've done New York Fashion Week, London Fashion Week, and I've done Lagos Fashion Week. So my time at London Fashion Week, I did experience a few racism in terms of people wanting to actually wear my stuff because it's from Africa and everything. But how I kind of overcame that was just proving to myself, being able to be vocal, I'm a mentor, so I was able to, sort of sell them the idea and let them know that this is from Africa and this is the generation that we're living in today. And like I said, having that imposter syndrome, believing in myself, being able to talk, because I feel like once you don't have the greatest communication skills, people won't believe in you. You have to believe in your product, you have to believe in what you're bringing to the table. And that kind of, inspired a few people to wear it, the people that did want to wear it. But yeah, like I said, just being yourself and being true to who you are and not letting it affect you.
Brilliant. And Tamara, just moving on to Black Lives Matter, what effect do you think Black Lives Matter has had on your industry, if it has had any impact on your industry?
I think it's had an impact. I think it's made brands be conscious of what they're putting out there and how their messaging as well and their imagery. I hope it's starting to make an effect. It's not just the image that we want. We don't just want the models down there. We want people more within within the company, actually at a higher level, kind of having more of an impact as well and better decision making. So I'm hoping that companies are starting to actually look within themselves of how they reflect and moving forward, kind of be more accepting to put people like myself, which is why I started my brand. Companies wouldn't give me the opportunity to show what I could do. So I had to create my own lane and do it myself. So hopefully they'll start taking on people and letting them shine better.
Excellent. And Faith, you obviously run an organisation, an educational charity that deals with individuals who are creatives and in fashion. What are some of the ways we feel like they can make a substantial difference to lives that are around them or even in their industry?
So for those that participate in our provisions, the way that they can kind of make a difference is really, we're supporting people at the beginning of their careers for all of those that join onto our provisions. So we really have an opportunity to embed some innovative new foundations based around sustainability, based around culture, and based around what does really cultural appreciation versus cultural appropriation really mean, and how they can really celebrate certain cultures if they have that as an interest, but how can their ethics build kind of strong foundations in order to celebrate instead of copy and paste. So we're really keen on being able to kind of build and develop those beginning foundations of those who join on, and then through that they can then go out and into the marketplace and share what they've learned through us.
Excellent. And Jessica, do you remember a specific experience where your industry had done something, where you wished your industry had done something differently? And if there is an experience, what would it be?
Oh, I want to answer that.
Oh, okay. You can answer it and then you can hand it over.
Well, I mean, I've got a lot to say actually, but hey, I mean, in relation to, so I'm really passionate about British fashion. And what is Black British fashion, and when you have, organisations like the British Fashion Council that is responsible for London Fashion Week, and you've got big leading brands within the sector, and finally wanting to support Black community and support brands and support designers. I think that it's great that a lot of institutions are starting to do more about it, but I think the door is still too narrow, and there's a place for them to still widen it. I think that America is doing a lot more. I think that America, of course, is experiencing a lot of issues around black community, much more so than maybe in Britain, although Britain is not innocent. But I think that there is a lot more, even in relation to higher education in institutions like Central St Martin's and Royal College of Art and their admissions process, and changing their diversity and what diversity looks like, because international students, although it's great, the demographic is still doesn't support the black community. So yeah, I'll hand over the mic.
Yes, I think all of you can answer that question if you remember the question.
Yeah. I wish the industry was less tokenistic. So using black people or using Africans to tick a box and to be like, oh yeah, we're diverse, oh yeah, we understand your culture and things like that. I wish they would let us in at the top, let more of us in as decision makers. I've had an experience once where I approached a space and they said, we already have, last year we had a black market, so that's enough. And I was like, oh, so you can only have one a year. So yeah, basically less tokenistic and using us as decision makers, as creatives, and appreciating that Africa, first of all, is not a country. It's a continent, and we're diverse. We've got so many different, varied things to bring to the table. And stop making silly decisions without consulting us if it's about us as well.
That's very true. And just moving on, same question to everyone.
Could you repeat the question?
Do you remember a specific experience of where you wish your industry had done something differently?
Yeah, so just building up it's just a situation where I feel like there's a lot of culture vultures in regards to Africa being one place, and Africa is built into different regions. You can get fashion inspiration from Kenya, Congo, like the Lesotho's, Lagos, and Ghana. So I feel like that whole stigma of someone like Beyonce or so, like actually making Africa seem like it's one country. I feel like that stigma needs to be kind of taken away, and sort of looking at different countries and seeing that there's actually different inspirations, different types of fabrics and cloths from different areas. So that was what I would say.
Brilliant. That's Marlon.
I would say for there to be bigger consequences. I think when brands do things wrong, i.e. when they have sweatshops, when they're not doing sustainable things, we're trying to hold them accountable. So I think now going forward, if they're not being more inclusive, they need to be held accountable for it. And I think that will help change the way that they work and the way that they put their messaging out, and for other people to be able to get in.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for being a part of the BLM segment. And if anyone has any questions out there, please feel free to ask again. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.